Hello 10th graders, this is Vivian, your English tutor on perpetual language. If this is the first time you're seeing me on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Today's video is about an interesting poem from your first flight reader. Before we get into the analysis of the poem, let me give you a small tidbit for you to ponder upon. What is your opinion about zoos? Do you think zoos are necessary? Or do you think these zoos are a kind of cruelty to wild animals? Feel free to comment below. Now, let's get into the poem. This poem that we're going to learn today is written by Carolyn. And it's a very humorous poem where the poet suggests few ways to identify wild animals. Let me ask you, if you encounter a wild animal, maybe a tiger, a lion, or a bear, how would you react? Isn't it horrific, even the thought of it, to encounter a wild animal? Let's see what the poet has to say about identifying these animals and how to react when you come across these wild animals. Let me read the first stanza of the poem, right, from your textbook. How to tell wild animals. If ever you should go by chance to jungles in the east, and if there should you advance a large and tawny beast, if he roars at you as you are dying, you'll know it is the Asian lion. Talking about the jungles in the east. The jungles in the east are usually rainforests which are thick and wild. If you are going to have an encounter, a face-to-face encounter with a wild animal, a huge tawny beast, what would you do? To be frank, I would die of an heart attack. Here the poet says, if he roars at you and you're dying, this is the height of the humor of the poet. So if the beast is going to roar at you and if you're going to die, be sure you have encountered the Asian lion. Moving on to the next stanza, the second stanza of the poem. Or if sometime when roaming around, a noble wild beast greets you with black stripes on a yellow ground, just notice if he eats you. This simple rule may help you learn the Bengal tiger to discern. Just imagine you're roaming around and then you come face to face with a wild beast that greets you. And the poet gives us a description about the beast. It has black stripes on yellow ground. It's obvious that you have encountered the Bengal tiger. The rule is quite simple. He says, if you're eaten up by this beast, be sure it's the Bengal tiger that has discerned on you. Talking about the Bengal tigers, they are the biggest wild cats alive today. And a single male tiger can weigh up to 260 kilograms. Just imagine you becoming a juicy meal to a Bengal tiger. Now moving on to the next stanza. If strolling forth a beast you view, whose hide with spots is peppered, as soon as he has leapt on you, you'll know it is the leopard. He will do no good to roar with pain. He'll only leap and leap again. Now, strolling forth, which means you're moving forward, and the poet says you are to face a beast, whose hide is peppered with black spots. It's quite clear that it is a leopard which has black spots on its hide. Hide here means the skin of an animal, right? When you encounter a leopard, what are you supposed to do? Naturally, anyone who encounters a leopard would start groaning, would start shouting in pain. But the poet says the leopard's not going to leave you. Your shouting or your groaning is not going to help you. The leopard is only going to leap and leap again, which means he's only going to pounce and pounce over and over again you, even if you're going to shout and groan with pain. Moving on to the fourth stanza. If when you're walking around your yard, you meet a creature there who hugs you very, very hard, be sure it's a bear. If you have any doubt, I guess he'll give you just one more curse. Now, the poet says, imagine you are taking a stroll in your own backyard, right? You're not in the wild, you're not in the jungle, in your own backyard. And then suddenly you encounter an animal which comes to you and gives you a tight hug. So the poet says, don't get carried away by this embrace of this creature because it's a bear. And even if you try to loosen yourself from the hug of a bear, keep in mind that a bear's hug is very tight and you can never get yourself relieved of its hug. Okay, so now let's pause here for a life-saving skill question. Now, this is just an imaginary humorous poem, right? But my question to you is, what if you really encounter a wild animal? How would you escape the attack of the animal? Just think about it and post your answers below. You might have heard an old story about two friends who walked along the woods, and then suddenly one of them is able to see a bear coming towards him. And then he is a boy who is well versed in climbing up a tree, and he climbs up a tree. But the other friend of his is left alone down to face the bear. And this boy, suddenly uses his sixth sense, and then he lies down flat on the ground and he acts dead. On seeing that the boy seems to be dead, the bear just leaves the boy alone. So this is a wild instinct, guys. Wild animals do not like to have their food being served on their plates. They like to play and they like to kill. So the best way to escape an attack of a wild animal is to act dead. Now moving on to the fifth and the sixth stanza of the poem. Though to distinguish beasts of prey, a novice might nonplus. The crocodiles you always may tell from the hyenas thus. Hyenas come with merry smiles, but if they weep, they are crocodiles. Novice means a learner, or as you may call it, a noob, someone who is new to something. Nonplus means to be confused. So in this stanza, the poet says, imagine you come across a crocodile and a hyena. How are you going to differentiate between these two animals? And the poet uses personification, a poetic device here. Personification is nothing but you apply human qualities to animals. So here the poet says crocodile weeping, a weeping crocodile, and an hyena with merry smiles. Okay, so it's just a comparison. So this poetic device that is being used in this stanza is personification. So the poet says, how are you going to differentiate between the crocodile and the hyena? So if you're going to see an animal which cries or weeps, then it's a crocodile. And if you're going to see an animal which is going to smile merrily after having an encounter with you, then you have come face to face with a hyena. If you notice closely, the poet uses a lot of poetic devices in this poem. Personification, alliteration, repetition, irony, and metaphors. Read the poem and try to identify these poetic devices. If you have any doubts, feel free to send in your queries to the mail ID that's given below. Now moving on to the last stanza of the poem. A true chameleon is small, a lizard sort of thing. He has not any ears at all and not a single wing. If there is nothing on the tree, 'tis the chameleon you see. This is the final and the last stanza of the poem, where the poet finally says you come across or you encounter or you face a chameleon. Now, the entire poem from the first stanza till the fourth and the fifth stanza, the poet has introduced you to the wild, huge animals, and towards the end of the poem, he introduces a lizard. What kind of effect is this lizard going to give the reader? So this stanza describes the qualities of a chameleon. So what are the qualities of a chameleon? It's very clear that a chameleon camouflages its surrounding. And also the poet describes the appearance of the chameleon. So he says the lizard is small in size, it has no ears, and if you find this lizard on a tree, it's nothing that you see, which means since the chameleon's character is to camouflage, he says you'll not be able to see anything, but it's the chameleon that's seated on the tree. I hope this video would help you understand the poem better. Continue to watch my videos on YouTube and feel free to send in your feedback and queries to the mail ID given below. Take care and bye-bye.